The award and the United Nations Convention on the Law of the Sea, or UNCLOS, are the twin anchors of the Philippines' policy and actions on the West Philippine Sea.
China has indisputable sovereignty over the South China Sea islands and their adjacent waters.
I wish to refer to the statement of a delegation referring to the South China Sea arbitration. We recall July 12, 2016, as the day that affirmed to the community of nations that the rule of law prevails and that stability, peace, and progress can only be attained when founded on a rules-based legal order on the oceans, as it should be everywhere else. The award and the United Nations Convention on the Law of the Sea, or UNCLOS, are the twin anchors of the Philippines' policy and actions on the West Philippine Sea. UNCLOS sets out the legal framework within which all activities in the oceans and seas must be carried out. There is no recourse to general international law on matters comprehensively covered by the UNCLOS. Compliance with UNCLOS, which represents a delicate balance of the rights and obligations of all states parties in its entirety, is key to ensuring global and regional peace and the fair and sustainable use of the oceans. The award and affirmation of UNCLOS dispute resolution mechanisms not only sets reason and right in the South China Sea, but is an inspiration for how matters should be considered through reason and right by states facing similarly challenging circumstances. It authoritatively ruled that the claim of historic rights to resources within the sea areas falling within the 9-dash line had no basis in law and is without legal effect. It upheld the Philippines' sovereign rights and jurisdiction in its exclusive economic zone. It affirmed that certain actions within the Philippines EEZ violated the Philippines' sovereign rights and were thus unlawful, that large-scale reclamation and construction of artificial islands caused severe environmental harm in violation of international conventions, that the large-scale harvesting of endangered marine species damaged the marine ecosystem, and that actions taken since the commencement of the arbitration had aggravated the disputes. These findings are no longer within the reach of denial and rebuttal, and are conclusive, and they are indisputable. Mr. President, the award is final. We firmly reject attempts to undermine it, nay, even erase it from law, history, and our collective memories. At the same time, we welcome the support of countries for the award. The award benefits the world across the board. We do not see it as directed at any other country, near or far. We see it as it should be seen, as favoring all which are similarly situated by clarifying definitively a legal situation beyond the reach of arms to change. It puts this aspect of international law beyond the limit of prescription. And so we say once again, the present that we need and the future that we want is a peaceful South China Sea. The Philippines is committed to do this for as long as it exists. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you. I call on the representative of Azerbaijan.
Mr. President, in response to yesterday's statement by Australia and today's statement by the Philippines, China exercises its right of reply. China always believes that the United Nations is not the appropriate place for discussing the South China Sea issue. However, it is necessary for us to make a solemn response. Given that erroneous remarks has been made, the South China Sea arbitration was unilaterally initiated by the Philippines, which violated the principle of state consent and contravenes international law, including UNCLOS, and the tribunal exceeded its authority and made unjust ruling, and the award is illegal and invalid. China does not accept or recognize the ruling, nor does it accept any claims or actions based on that. China's territorial sovereignty and maritime rights and interests in the South China Sea are not affected by the ruling under any circumstances. China has indisputable sovereignty over the South China Sea islands and their adjacent waters, and sovereign rights and jurisdiction over the relevant waters. China's regular patrols, law enforcement, and production activities in waters under its jurisdiction are compliant with international law, including UNCLOS. The recent escalation of the South China Sea issue between China and the Philippines is entirely the responsibility of the Philippines. China will continue to resolve the disputes in the South China Sea through negotiations and consultations with directly concerned parties, including the Philippines, on the basis of respecting facts and in accordance with international law. China will also continue to work with ASEAN countries to safeguard peace and stability in the South China Sea. Thank you.
Thank you. I now call on the representative of the Philippines for the second intervention.
Thank you, Mr. President. With respect to the earlier intervention made, allow me to reaffirm. The 2016 South China Sea arbitration is a testament to the Philippines' unwavering commitment to the rule of law and the peaceful settlement of disputes. Over the years, the Philippines has continued to demonstrate this commitment to peace even in the face of the unlawful actions which have caused serious incidents in the South China Sea, without ever diminishing our resolve to protect and promote our people's interests and the full and responsible enjoyment of our legally settled maritime entitlements and its accompanying rights and jurisdictions. This determination has only been strengthened by the broadening affirmation of the legal value of the award as a positive and legitimate source of international law. We are encouraged by the expressions of support made by other states that confirm the final and binding status of the award, including the G7's consistent reaffirmation that it is a significant milestone and a useful basis for the peaceful management of and resolution of differences at sea. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you. I give now the floor to the representative of China for a second intervention.
Thank you, Mr. President. In response to the statement made by the delegate of the Philippines, China is compelled to make another response. China does not accept or recognize the so-called South China Sea arbitration. This is precisely for the preservation of the rule of law, of the international maritime rule of law. UNCLOS does not represent the entirety of international maritime law. The arbitration initiated by the Philippines boils down to the issue of territorial claims, which are not subject to a regulation by the UNCLOS. The so-called arbitration award contains many grave fallacies with regard to issues such as historical rights, the outlying archipelago of continental states, as well as the regime of islands. For example, according to the ruling, the biggest island in Nansha Qundao, the Taiping Dao, has been characterized as a rock. Such a fallacious ruling seriously undermines the credibility of the dispute resolution mechanism under the UNCLOS. If this argument, as contained in the ruling, has been accepted, then many countries' islands will become rocks and therefore are not entitled to full maritime rights. China's position is based on the maintenance of China's territorial rights and maritime interests and rights. it is also driven by the conviction that it is necessary to maintain the integrity and authority of the UNCLOS, prevent the UNCLOS from being abused, and prevent the international law being undermined. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you. I now call on the representative